Welcome, Angela and Mia. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to get to interview you both. I would love if you could both introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Angela Page. I'm a author, writer, and producer based in South Florida, where I just escaped Hurricane Ian. Native of New Jersey, Jersey girl, and have lived across the world, actually, and now back in the U.S. Mia.
Hi, I'm Mia Altieri, and I'm an actress and a writer and a personal chef. And I live here in Topanga, California with my cat, Giuseppe. It's a beautiful land, and I'm happy to be here with you, Courtney.
What are your guys' books about?
So There's a Dead Girl in My Yard is a co-authored book of me and myself, and it's actually based on Mia's real life experience, which I'll let her describe, of witnessing an urn being buried in her guest house garden and yard. It's a crime comedy. It spans Topanga Canyon, where all this took place. And it also includes Miami, New York, and it's got some a whole host of multicultural characters. And I'll let Mia describe how this all came to being.
So with the brilliance of Angela, Angela has written some other books and a film, and I'll just tell the story of how the book was birthed very briefly. And she and myself, I was in a film that she had written and produced, and there was two other gals with us, and we were on a road trip. And I was answering a text, the first text, I answered it very kindly. And the second text that I received from the same person threw me off for a loop. And I had an explosion of sorts in the Starbucks on the way to Show Low, Arizona. And Angela asked if I was okay. Is everything all right? And I just said, "There's a dead girl in my yard," and la 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 la. And Angela, again with her brilliance, just was like, "I need to know more about this. Like, what is happening here?" And long and the short of it is, Angela couldn't get it out of her head. She started writing and then asked me if I wanted to join her, and I said, "Heck yes." So what really the premise is, or the beginning of it, is that, yes, I was living in a lovely guest house in Topanga, and a friend of a friend's best girlfriend had passed away, and she was living in Venice, California, in an apartment. And so they wanted to plant a tree in her name. And so the yard that I was living in got chosen, even though I was a renter. But the landlord was okay with it, pay it forward. There's a beautiful spot on the property amongst the fruit trees. And so some guys came, bought the tree, they brought the tree, they dug a hole. Then on Saturday, there was a giant party of shamans and her friends and ex-husband, and people were putting rocks and notes and singing and chanting. And there was, champagne and a real party. And I'm just peeping out my guest house, and on my patio, the table out there, all of a sudden is presented an urn. And no one told me about the urn. They told me about the tree, but not the urn. So I had a bit of a and went along with the party and just everything. And that's how the story began. And then there's many other things within the book that are related to the characters that were there, because then we created this WhatsApp group, and that was the part that was people wanted to come and see the tree and take pictures of it, and wanted me to take pictures of it, and stopping by and visiting. And that was the one upsetting, is this one guy wanted the master gate code to get into the property to visit the tree whenever he wanted, and that to me was just absurd. So that's where it sort of went. And Angela and I wrote it during the pandemic. She was in Florida, and we just laughed so hard and got creative. But she's really the brain around all of the don't know, how do I want to call that, Angela? The money laundering and
the crime family stuff.
the crime part, and
Yeah.
but
But
boy, oh boy,
it's the part about the fact that you became the Mourner manager
yes,
of WhatsApp and the Facebook groups for this person that was really buried in that yard, and this person actually had a following, a fan base on YouTube. And so we incorporated some of these elements in the book, but we added a lot of fiction, obviously. But the basics of watching the urn, becoming a mourner manager, and the most crazy part, which I then said this was definitely a book, a film, or something, is she left clothes behind, and Mia is the same size. And when she wore the clothes of the dead girl, she got the parts after the audition. That inspired us even further.
Yeah. So, and how it happened, it was really sweet. Like, this guy, the one who dug the hole and everything, and one of her other best friends, and we really would love for you to have some of her clothing. What are your favorite colors? And so they came over and they had this, like 6 or 7 items. But then the gal said, you should come over because we're getting rid of a lot of her things. So I went to her apartment, and oh my gosh, this woman had an array, like a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wardrobe and things. And so I donated some money and came home with some gorgeous, all designer clothes. And it's true, like I would feel her and go on auditions, and things were starting to happen. And so we put that in the book as well.
I love that. Angela, would you want to touch on your other books that you've written by yourself?
Yes. My first book was called Matched in Heaven, which is a fantasy comedy also. And the second one, as Mia mentioned, is called Suddenly Single Sylvia. It's a novella and a dating guide for boomers. And there's also a film, which that's how I met Mia. Mia is one of the daters in this film. It's a short film. And we were actually at a film festival when all this took place. And so There's a Dead Girl in My Yard is my third book. All on Amazon, by the way. Everything on Amazon.
Amazing. What inspired you to write your books?
So the first one is actually based on personal experience, but I include a lot of fantasy about imagining that heaven has support groups for people on earth. And that has actually upset some people, that their version of angels and that heaven is not what I depicted, which is, I think, I just mirror the earth and people, humans, and that kind of upsets some people. But it is funny. I had been widowed actually twice, and I incorporated this element in the book, as well as the fantasy part. Sylvia was actually, I had a couple of friends that had a dating service back pre-internet, and they had a lot of material that they shared with me, and that was the genesis of Sylvia, Suddenly Single Sylvia, who started a dating service with 2 housemates. One is a young trans Asian, and one is a Latina chiropractor. And that's actually been optioned for a series, the book and the film. So we'll see. It was during COVID, so we'll see if that resurrects itself again. But we're hoping there's a Dead Girl in My Yard will have a life on either the big or the little screen.
Yes, we do.
When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Anybody that wants to laugh, actually, and get entertained.
Totally. And I'll just add this. So my parents are in their early 80s, and they were fine with it but they gave it to one of their older friends who was like in her late 80s. And she didn't like some of the language and some of the sex and relationships like that. And so I said to Angela, I guess we didn't write it for like the 89-year-old, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that would think it was very funny. But yeah, I think we wrote it. I mean, for anybody who wants to go on a mystery ride and laugh the whole way through. Maybe not the whole way through, but
There's a very large Hispanic element to it that's based in Miami. So I think I think we've got a wide audience as far as that's concerned, age group. A lot of the South Florida 80-year-olds love the book. We're not enjoyed the language and the sex, actually. So, but a little difficult because it's the first person. I think Mia's coming into issues with people thinks it's really her.
Yes.
When we kind of were inspired, the lead character is inspired by Mia and her journey as an actor in Hollywood. We took advantage of all that. Yeah.
Yes, but as Angela said, but even about her book, her first book, we added a lot of things that no one experienced except in our imagination.
Love that. How long have you been writing, and what made you really sit down and start to write?
I mean, in general? Oh yeah. Oh, I've been writing for decades. I started actually in the theater, and in fact, I just directed a play in Tampa that I wrote myself, which is part of a festival. And then I went on to short stories, and I studied screenwriting and did TV pilots and features, and then moved on to do these couple of books. So kind of like a varied portfolio of things. And so I never stopped. Despite working in corporate, I never stopped writing, pretty much.
And I think I've been a closet writer since I was a very young girl. In fact, I was thinking about this the other night and never really had the confidence that my stories were good enough to share like everybody else's were. So I think even sometimes like I would hear a joke and I'd kind of plagiarize that as like some book that I was writing for, a class or something. But I've always wanted to write. And I think while I was living in Paris about 10 years ago, I was there for 2.5 years, and I had an illness, lots of things going wrong there. But that's when I really decided I wanted to dedicate my life to my dreams, which is to act and to write. So I started there, but it was really the push of Angela to get this happening. And her enthusiasm, her knowledge, her expertise in this whole world has helped me so much. And now, I'm finishing up a one act that I had started years ago. I'm starting my second novel, which I had started some time ago, but have gotten some really nice mentoring help with through that now. And I have a list of short stories to share. So I think I will be writing for the rest of my life.
I love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
Well, obviously it varies. I mean, during COVID, we had a lot of time on our hands, obviously, and so we were able to knock out a lot of the book in that time. And by the end, I guess as COVID started waning, we had a good draft to send out for editing and find a publisher. But I think it varies on what the project is. I mean, I belong to writing groups that force me to write a chapter a week or half a chapter a week. So I think I would recommend that for a lot of writers to get into a writers group that actually puts you on a schedule, some accountability on anything, any type of writing. And I'm sure Mia would agree that really gets you down. So that on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, you've got to have some material to read out or distribute to the group. And I prefer that. Sometimes I am have some self-discipline, but the writers group really makes a difference, I think. Would you agree, Mia?
Yeah, I do agree. I have a monthly writing group that I join, that I see here locally in Topanga, but then also 2 nights a week, I have just an accountability call with a friend of mine, and we catch up, and she's a stand-up comedian. So we take the hour and we write, and then we share what we've written. So that helps too, to know that every Tuesday and every Thursday, or, if that Tuesday doesn't work out, another day during that week will be supportive. But I just actually wrote in my calendar, because my schedule is not really set at all, which is lovely to me. But I made a declaration that the 10th through the 17th of October, I'm shutting down. Instead of doing, because I'm a private chef for a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center. So not only do we have big public retreats happening, but people come for private retreat. And I just finished one myself. And I was like, oh, I need to do one for writing. So I'm taking that week to schedule in writing. And that's my commitment, because I think as a discipline, sometimes if I'm not held accountable, I will find any distraction to do something else, or, but then there are other days that I just sit down and I write because I've got an idea, and then it just keeps going on. But I think being accountable and being accountable for someone and to someone is great.
Amazing. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I think it depends on what I'm writing. I mean, if I'm writing something lighter, I could have music on or even the TV in the background. And other times you want to have complete silence. And I'm a night person, so I tend to write better at night. And but if I'm on a deadline, I'll change my schedule around, and I kind of peter out in the afternoons. I'm kind of like worthless between 2 and 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock. So every time your body clock, that's important. I'm sure Mia's got the same.
Yeah, well, I also adopted this fun little habit of putting on some sort of an outfit for like the character, just to get into that. I used to do that when I would paint. Like I'd put on just an all white thing just so I could get the colors all over. And I sometimes do that to get into. It was very easy with Poppy because she was myself. But then I'd go to my closet and like hold a scarf of hers or put on a hat or something. And I find that just interesting, just something to keep touching on, or to keep something tactile to keep me in that space of the character. The one I'm writing right now she's only like eight or 9. And then the other main character is a 27-year-old man. And so that's interesting to shift back and forth of, or between. But yeah, I tend to be late night, but then sometimes morning I'm more clear. But yeah, I do like having like a little something that reminds me, like for the little girl, sometimes I wear a necklace and I can just play with the necklace for a while. And
what is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Wow. Sometimes, it'll be alcohol. Other times, I try not to snack at night. Since I write at night, I try not to snack at night. I had the fortune to work in a TV station that interviewed Liza Minnelli many years ago, and I met her and pulled her out of the bathroom because we were timed the thing, and I said, "You look fabulous, Miss Minnelli. What? Gosh," she says, "No carbs after 6 p.m., honey." That was her. That was Liza Minnelli's individual piece of advice for me, and so I try to follow that. Hard to, but try not snacking at night. That's my thing. Morning is a different story, but no snacks.
yeah, I try not to eat while I write, just because I'll get distracted into that, or I'm not focusing on what I'm eating. Like I try to eat mindfully in my life, but also I don't want to, like if I'm eating something and then typing, then my computer's all dirty and crummy. So I try to stay with just the writing and get up to shake out my legs or whatever. And then if I'm hungry, have the snack or lunch or breakfast or dinner or something then.
Love that. What types of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I actually, I'm very eclectic with my books. I know a lot of authors. I'm a member of the Authors Guild. I'm also the publicity chair for the Women's National Book Association, the local chapter here. So I'm a very busy reading other people's books, so that I know authors I know. I just finished one the last couple of days, historical fiction, which is terrific. So I tend to. And I also do a lot of research writing. So I've been writing a historical fiction myself, and I do a lot of background reading about the time and the place. I've been writing about early 20th century Italy, the wars, World War I, World War II, things that happened in the village of my family. And that's consumed a lot for the last couple of years, actually. A lot of books about Italy and the wars and things like that. So background.
Yeah, I would have to say similarly, I don't have one particularly favorite genre. My bookshelf covers medical books to French plays to, scripts and other plays. And, I love old classics. that I read again and again. Right here underneath my computer to lift up, I've got the Shakespeare works, The Wisdom of Bliss by Robert Thurman, who's the Tibetan professor. And then I've got the Tibetan Book of Health and Karma Mudra, the Yoga of Bliss, and a couple other things. There's a Dead Girl in My Yard is here. I read a lot.
Yeah, we should hold up the book at the same time here.
Yes.
I mean, yeah.
I don't think we're going video on this one, but just I bought a book on the I Ching the other day because I'm interested. And I do like Angela, love like historical actually truth. Like when I was living in France, I just got so fascinated by all the royalty and the royal family. And so things like that, I think too, anything documentary style where I'm learning about another culture or those kind of books totally fascinate me as well.
Amazing. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
I would say, by the way, the comps for this, it kind of moves around, but the comps for this book, is Where'd You Go, Bernadette? And it's got the same flavor to it as Gone Girl as well. And Carl Hyacinth, who's a South Florida-based writer who's written a lot of crime comedy based in Miami and a lot of the same groups and types of characters that we wrote about. So I was particularly focused on those types of books around the time that we were writing Dead Girl, as well as doing, of course, a lot of research. And that's a lot of my reading is about that. But otherwise, I was heavily into, I love biographies. I love all the gossipy stuff of other people's biographies, whether it's royalty or Hollywood stars or historical figures, presidents' wives, presidents' mistresses. You name it, I love to devour. I'm a big biography fan. And unauthorized biographies and the real biographies.
Trying to think who made me want to really be an author. I mean, honestly, the first author comes to mind is Dr. Seuss, because I was just so in love with those books as a kid and giggled and loved to laugh. And then I found like serious writers like Dr. Viktor Frankl and Rainer Marie Rilke. And some of the French writers were like, they wrote unlike I'd experienced, like the kind of books that I had written or had read during high school and such. But I think the one that I really turned me on was a French author, Céline, because his writing was so raw and so deep and so visual that it's my goal to get to a place like that, whether that's in like drama or in comedy, just to keep the visual, so you can smell, taste, and viscerally feel what I'm trying to express.
I have to say, I didn't know this about you. It's something I discovered. I also was a big Celine fan.
Oh my gosh!
I have an original beat up copy that was owned by some from a Hollywood warlock, apparently, and so it's still beat up. It's in a plastic bag. I'm gonna give it to you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. In fact, one of the quotes from what is it? Long Day's Journey into the End, or something. I can't even believe I don't remember the book. But that's there's a quote in there that starts my second novel. Yeah, can't believe I can't think of it right now.
Love that. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have a favorite?
I actually went straight to adult books as a kid. I didn't fancy. I was really young. Obviously, I must have liked some of them. But by the time I could read, maybe 8, 9, 10, I actually the first book I was in love with Oscar Wilde's plays, even though I probably didn't understand half of them at the time. But I was mesmerized, and that's probably why I became a playwright first. Before I wrote short stories, was that I read that. I started to read War and Peace. And again, I'm not sure if I got all the way through it, but we had a library full of some interesting adult books. And I kind of went straight to that at a very early age. And then one day, I was about 12, and we had in the place we were living here in Florida, there was a lending library. And I picked up John Updike's Couples at a very, very early age. And nobody stopped me from reading it, but that was kind of my introduction to a lot of stuff, a lot of grown-up stuff. And I was mesmerized by that, and I probably memorized all the different, whatever they did, from this. And, they were doing skinny dipping pool parties and all sorts of adultery and all this business. And I probably didn't understand half of it, but I was just fascinated. So I really gravitated early on to adult material.
When I'm trying to think of like being young, I remember my room maybe when I was, say, in 4th grade, and it was like all yellow. But someone had gifted me for a birthday or something, all of the Little House on the Prairie books. Like it came in like this little box set, and I never read one of those, not one. And I do remember I obviously was older, but I still love Dr. Seuss. And I remember reading lots of books that were on limericks. I loved limericks when I was a kid. And then the one book I do remember pulling off my parents' shelf, like in the hallway, besides like the encyclopedias or whatever, was The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And I remember reading that when I was like 10, but I'm not sure I really understood it because I kept reading it again and again, trying to figure it out. But I know there had to be something that I really, really enjoyed. But I do think by the time I was in junior high school, I was far more into sports and athletics, which is the same thing, and things like that. But that's a good thing for me to have in my memory. Thank you, Courtney.
On the opposite side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if something new comes out, you're going to grab it no matter what the topic is?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good one. I am obviously a big consumer of TV, obviously, in streaming. So I am hooked on these writers now that are coming up with these fabulous series like Succession on HBO, and of course there's Stranger Things on the other side. A lot of the limited series as well, that docudramas and all that. And I'm on everything, and I'm a binger. That's when the snacks come in, actually. Binge watching on Amazon, on Netflix, or any other of these channels, especially Netflix, because you get to see the whole thing. That's when the bag of potato chips comes out, the pretzels, the peanuts, the drinks, whatever. So that's when I don't snack while writing, but I do snack while binging.
That's so
The
radical.
crown's going to drop, and the crown will drop in November, and that will be several bags of potato chips, I'm sure, because I'll watch the whole thing in one snack.
Yeah. Again, to answer your question, I'm always curious, an author that I like. I kind of just go with what sounds good to me, or mostly a recommendation from somebody else. That's usually where I get, especially because most of it's unknown to me. If it, and then they recommend it, and it's like, oh my gosh. But I just, yeah, yeah. There wasn't really a clear answer. The clear answer is that I get into what's in front of me. Either I get into it or I don't, or what's shared with me, I should say.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Reading, I'd say you have to go with your gut and what your passion is, what you're drawn to. And again, as Mia said, a lot of recommendations. If you have similar tastes of other people, there's so much out there to consume now. So, our time is valuable, as Mia said. You get into it, you don't get into it. But I'd seek out, and there's a lot of things online now to get introduction. There's a lot of things on Substack, and also other outlets where you could get a taste of different authors that they share their work. I was just on a webinar about Substack and something called Kindle Vella, which is now a serializing fiction. So that is an excellent way that you can. In some cases they're paid subscriptions, other times they're free. but they recommend each other. I think it's a fabulous way now. Get online, get some of these people's blogs where they also serialize their own work. You can get introductions to authors that you didn't have access to before. So highly recommend doing a search, and as Mia said, get recommendations as well.
Yeah, I love that, Angela. I didn't know about those.
Yeah, I just learned yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Cinderella. It rhymes with Cinderella.
Yeah, yeah.
And Substack. Yeah.
I will not forget that.
Yeah.
And if I were suggesting to someone who's just starting to read, like, let your heart and, like Angela said, your imagination run wild. There is something on every topic, whether it's you want to learn how to do it, or here's somebody's story about it, or the reporting of it, or the living through it, or there's it's a beautiful world out there.
And audiobooks, that's a big market. And by the way, Dead Girl will be released on audio, I hope, in the next month.
I think so.
We have a lot of people asking that didn't buy our book, but they want to have the audio. So audiobooks has also transformed the market. And there's a lot of people stay in traffic, or they're in a public transportation and they're listening to audio. That has become a huge market. And I highly recommend that if you don't have the patience to sit and read, or you feel more comfortable with the audio, then go for it.
Love that. Yeah. On the opposite side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
As I said, get with a writers group, and get some mentoring, and or start out. And some people take classes. Some people like that structure of a class structure. Other people like those informal groups. But have support system. That's really critical. And have your stuff read and critiqued by not your family and friends. You want to get objective advice. And going forward, and also do reading and look at how other books are structured. We're very since I write screenplays and I watch TV and I also write TV pilots. We wrote Dead Girl with the ability to easily transform to the screen, so that we were able to mirror the structure of a screenplay or a TV series or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to second exactly what Angela said, but I'm going to take it a step further. Is just if someone has the inclination to write or tell a story, just do it, because it's brewing in there for a reason. It sounds so cliche these days because it's all over, but everybody has a story to tell, maybe 100, and just have enough confidence to start. And what was, some other great advice is, it's not going to be perfect the first time, and who cares? Just start writing. And then, just like Angela said, get the support that you need, the accountability that one needs, mentoring, groups, classes, whatever it takes. But if something inside is saying, I've got to write, or I want to write, just do it.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, God, many things. I think probably that at one time I was a jazz vocalist. That's a little known fact. I don't pass around because I haven't done it for a number of years. That's one fun fact. And the other one that I collected money for multinationals around the world. So those are a couple of my other careers that have come and gone.
God, what was the question?
A fun fact about yourself that nobody knows about, that we didn't cover in the book, I think we put you with an open book.
We covered a lot of things. We covered the surgery.
Cover in the book that was a hidden fact.
I don't think most people knew that I lied about graduating college when I was 20, whatever, 4, and that I actually graduated when I was 50. So yes, I am a graduate of UCLA as of now. But that's a stinky secret, but that was one thing that people probably did not know. And I don't know what else.
You're an open book. You're just an open book. So
Everybody knows I'm a ding dong dork and, silly and goofy and try not to have any secrets and just be, I don't know. Maybe some people don't know that though. Haha.
You're a ding dong dork? No, I think it's widely information that's widely available.
That they probably didn't think that I didn't have any secrets, that I was willing to share everything about myself.
Right. Correct.
Which is funny because I had said to Angela, there was a man that I met who I shared the book with. He's an actor, ex-producer, and all this stuff. And so after he read it, we met for lunch, and he leans in really close and he's like, I just want to know why you gave me this book, because it's about you, right? And I just sort of giggled because it's like, well, he's like, well, what part is true about you? And I said, well, why don't you ask which parts are, and I'll tell you what aren't. But that Angela kind of tipped on that at the beginning of this. Like, I just find it funny that he was curious to why I gave it to him. And, Tony, if you're listening, if you find this, it's because I want you to be in it if we make it a movie, and I want you to help us to produce it. And so I said that to him. It's not like I wanted him to. I don't know.
So basically, our books have ruined our dating lives, because my first book talks about how all my husbands are dead, and this there's a dead girl in my yard. Mia does a number of very the main character does a number of very controversial things with men, and so we now have ruined our own dating opportunities.
That's what I was wondering. He's like, have you had that many partners? I'm like, no, it's called makeup. It's called make it up.
Love it.
Right.
Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I think just to say that you can find there's a Dead Girl in My Yard on Amazon. There is a site, deadgirlbook.com. My site is angelapage.net. And Mia can give her social media handles, I think, as well.
Yeah, my personal Instagram got hijacked and I haven't been able to get it back, but we have deadgirl.book on Instagram, and then Mia Altieri on Facebook.
Perfect. And you covered this last question for the most part, but the best place for readers to find your book, is signed copies an option? I know some readers love that. And then the best place to connect with you.
Yeah, Facebook is good.
Yeah. And signed copies, how fun.
We have a Facebook page, and we each have Facebook pages.
Yeah. And signed copies, how fun. Of course.
Yes, we will happily provide signed copies.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for being here today. And I'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so that people can find you easier. And again, thank you so much.
Great. And send us the links, your social media links, and we'll pass the word on.
Exactly.